I know that some are skeptical because of the uncertainties that are linked to Russia's continued aggression against Ukraine and the costs of enlargement. But the costs of an incomplete union is way higher. The cost of fragmentation and less prosperity. The cost of war and instability at our borders. The cost of interference within our borders. And it would send a message to autocrats across the world that brute force can break the free will of free people. We simply cannot let this happen. And at the same time, think about the impressive progress that a country like Ukraine has achieved in recent years. They have passed an incredible set of reforms, reached candidate status, started accession negotiations. All of this while fighting a war for their survival. There is a well-known definition of politics as the art of the possible. Well, this is not enough. Sometimes, when history calls, politics must be the art of making even the impossible come true. We must dare to aim high. The second lesson from Delors that I would like to address is this. Europe is a constant work in progress. Just a few years after history had been written in Maastricht, Delors was already thinking about the next step. And before he left the presidency, he laid out his vision on how the Maastricht Treaty could be rolled out and pushed further. For European integration, there is no such thing as mission accomplished. Our union is never perfect, but it is perfectible. And Europe needs to be present when it is most required. That is exactly what Europe did when we set up Next Generation EU to address the consequences of a devastating pandemic. And when Russia tried to blackmail us with our overdependency on cheap and dirty fossil fuels, we joined forces and broke free. We bought energy together, using our critical mass of 27 member states to have more market power. And we invested massively in renewable energy that is clean, homegrown energy, and good jobs for Europe. As a result, in the first half of this year, more than 50% of our electricity has come from renewables. But our job is far from over. And 30 years into the single market, our economic union is still far from complete. Our competitors have continent-sized economies, with continent-sized markets and state budgets. A startup from California can expand and raise money all across the United States. But our companies still face way too many national barriers that make it hard to work Europe-wide, way too much regulatory burden. While 300 billion euros of European household savings are invested in foreign markets every year, we still have fragmented capital markets. And this is why we want to build a European savings and investments union, a deep and liquid capital markets union, a decarbonized and circular economy, and one single market. Simpler, faster, and more sustainable. And this will be one of our main missions for the 5 years ahead. The path that started 70 years ago must continue towards a prosperous and fair Europe. And this leads me to the third and final lesson of Jacques Delors. He was the architect of the single market and the euro, but he always thought that economic integration was not enough. In his own words, Europe needs a soul. And he meant that our union had to reach out to the hearts and minds of Europeans. Delors believed in the power of symbols. He was the first president to celebrate Europe Day and to raise our blue flag with golden stars outside the Berlaymont. Delors wanted all Europeans to feel pride for our values of peace and democracy, to feel a sense of belonging to a community of destiny. But beyond symbols, he believed that Europe needed a social anchor. The freedom of the markets had to come with protection of workers across Europe, and this is still true today. The people of Europe expect, rightly so, that our union will stand at their side in times of need. And this is exactly what we did time and again in the recent years, when we made sure that all Europeans could have access to life-saving vaccines, when we saved their jobs together in pandemic times with SURE, and when we acted together against the impacts of climate change, from forest fires to floods and droughts. This is European solidarity at its best. Yes, the people of Europe want our union to stand up for them on the global stage, but they also want our union to stand close to them, to protect them as a partner and an ally in their daily battles. We must have the courage to step out of our comfort zone and, if necessary, to step into new fields of action. And this is why, for the first time ever, I have put housing on the European agenda. Young people like you are struggling to find affordable homes, and this is just not right. I want Europe to look into this and to help unlock the private and the public investment we need. If it matters to you, it must matter to Europe. Or think about the crucial issue of mental health that I know is especially dear to young people. Of course, family and friends and the medical system are the first line of help. But there's so much that Europe can do. For instance, by addressing the addictive design of some social media platforms and the plague of cyberbullying. Some may say that health or housing are not European issues. Some may say we should not get involved. But I want our union to step up whenever it can make a difference and where it matters the most to people. You can do business and make money all over the world, wherever you want. But where do people want to settle and raise their children? Where the streets are safe, where they have prospects, where everyone has access to good education and culture, regardless of how much money they have, where everyone has access to health care, where there's lasting peace, where they can move freely, study, work, across borders that no longer exist, where they can build something that stays theirs, where the rule of law wins and not the right of might. And that is what our union is and what our European Union stands for. Because Europe is more than a union, it is our home. And to me, this is the greatest lesson of Jacques Delors. The fundamental feature of leadership is not to rise above others, but to be at the service of others. Leadership and public service are two sides of the same coin. And so, I go back to where I started. You are the next generation of European leaders. Europe will need all of your talent and your passion. But how you will contribute to European projects is entirely up to you. Here in Bruges, you will get the tools you need. You will get a great understanding on how our union works. But always keep in mind who it works for and why it exists. Because Europe only works if it works for the people of Europe. So at the end of this year, take a moment to think about the way ahead. Think about all the different ways to do something for Europe. And find the one that makes you happy, where you can put your talents to good use. Do not look for the fastest way to reach the top. Think about how best you can serve Europe and its people. This is what leadership means. This is how you will lead our union forward. So, best of luck to all of you and long live Europe. Thank you.